This video is going to look a little closer at the combat in Rommel and also clarify a few points that were made in the How to Play video. It will look at the basic combat situation, artillery support, how shifts work, tank combat, and also more complex situations using tactics. In this first example, it is the German player's turn, and they have paid their ops dice to be able to move. There are 3 elements from the same parent unit, all at full strength with a combat value of 4 each. Facing them are 2 Soviet elements, also from the same parent organisation, and at full strength. These have a combat value of 4 each. To attack, the German player moves his units into the same square as the Soviet player's units, and the square is now contested. To decide the winner of the combat, we simply add up the combat value of the attacking and defending units, then roll a dice each and consult the combat chart. The Germans have a combat value of 12, the Soviets 8. The Germans roll a 4 and count up the chart on the 4 column until we reach the number 12 or less, whichever is the lowest. In this case it is a 9, meaning there are 2 yellow boxes below and therefore 2 hits. The hits have to be shared out between the units. As these are both fresh, each Soviet unit takes a hit each. Now the Soviets roll their defence dice. As this is simultaneous, we ignore the amount of hits just taken and their combat value remains at 8 just for this roll. They roll a 1, unluckily. On the chart, they needed a combat value of 12 or above to cause a hit, so this causes no hits on the Germans. After the combat, the square remains contested, as there are still Soviet units present. This forces the Germans to retreat. They can retreat up to 2 squares, but here they only fall back 1. Finally, because they retreated, the German units are tipped. This signifies that they are disorganised and will have to half their combat value if attacked until they untip. They untip at the start of their next turn. Artillery can be used to increase the combat value of the attacker or defender, as long as the battery is within range and also part of the same parent unit. Artillery also allows to temporarily increase the amount of attacking units into a square beyond the normal maximum of 3. The barrage value is added to the combat value of the units, here it is 12, plus 3 making 15 against the Soviet 8. Rolling a 3 on the German dice gives us 2 hits from the combat chart. The Soviet roll is a 4. This causes 1 hit from their combat value of 8. As all the German units are fresh, the German player decides which unit takes a hit. The Soviets spread their hits across both of their units. Finally, the German units retreat and are tipped. Here, the Soviet unit is in the open and worn, having already taken a hit. It is faced by 3 German units, one of which has taken a hit, and they are supported by artillery. The Germans move into the Soviet square, making it contested. Adding the German combat value of 4, 4, 3 and 3 for the artillery totals 14 points. This is against a 3 for the Soviets. They will need to roll a 5 or a 6 to cause a single hit on the German attackers. The Germans, however, roll a 5, causing 3 hits on the Soviet defender. The Soviet roll a 1, causing no hits on the Germans. The Soviets only have a combat strength of 3, so they are shattered and removed from the game. The Germans remain in the contested square, having taken no casualties, and are not tipped as they didn't retreat. Now the Germans are attacking with the unit of Panzer IV tanks in support. The defenders have already suffered casualties, as has 1 German unit. The combat score for the Germans is therefore 12 against the Soviet 5. The Germans roll their dice, getting a 6, which causes 3 hits on the table. Even though the Soviets have to spread the hits across their units, they only have 3 in total, shattering both units. But before we remove them, they get to defend. They roll a 5, causing 2 hits. However, they are suffering from tank shock. They are being attacked by armour with no supporting armour in the open, and they get a downshift. This means that they end up with only 1 hit on the attackers. This has to be on one of the fresh German units. The Soviet units are removed, but the German attackers take the ground. Other factors come into play in situations when tanks attack other armour. Here, 2 German units of Panzer IVs and a unit of Panthers are attacking 2 Soviet units of T-34s. Both players will choose a leading unit. This has to be a unit with at least as many boxes remaining on its track as any other unit. The player with the highest armour value has the armour advantage. The Panthers here have 5, the Panzers have 4, and the T-34 has 3. So the Germans choose the Panther as their lead unit. The German tanks move into contest the square with a combat value of 15. They roll a 5, causing 3 hits. However, as they have the armour advantage, they also cause 1 extra hit if they cause at least 1 hit on the enemy, making 4 in total. This extra hit has to be applied to enemy armour. The Soviets roll a 2, causing no hits on the Germans. So although the Soviets take heavy losses, they are still present in the square, and the Germans must retreat and become tipped. Finally, we're going to take a look at tactics and how they influence combat. 3 German armour units in position to attack a single T-34 in the open. Using Panthers and Panzer IVs, the Germans should be able to easily destroy this single unit. Before any combat begins, both sides decide in secret if they want to use any tactics, either offensive or defensive. The Germans decide on using smoke and an airstrike to ensure that their attack is successful. The Soviets, however, play fast reaction. This allows 1 passive unit in an adjacent square to move into the contested square as long as stacking limit of 3 is not exceeded. They move the other T-34 into the contested square. So we count up the combat value. The Germans have 15. They roll a 3, causing 2 hits. Their airstrike shifts the score up 1 to 3 hits, and their armour advantage causes an additional hit. The Soviets return fire with a combat value of 6. They roll a 6, causing 2 hits. But the Germans also use smoke as one of their tactics, shifting this total down to 1. So the Soviets take 4 hits, whilst the Germans only take 1, and are forced to retreat because there are still Soviets present. As the Germans have retreated, they are tipped, and this ends the combat. As you have seen, combat in Rommel is essentially a simple procedure, but complexity is added through unit types, artillery support, and the use of tactics. Knowing when to strike is imperative, as is having the correct balance of attacking units, tactics, and support. Careful planning is needed for victory.